So 14 chapters entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature, and the 15th is on Yoga of the Supreme Person. Share. Okay, so as we know, there's 5 subjects in Bhagavad Gita. First subject is about the living entity. Second one is on the Supreme Lord. First one is Jiva. Then you have Ishvara. The third one is Prakriti. So Prakriti is material nature. So we discussed earlier, there are 24 elements of material nature. So among the 24 elements, the 24th element is said to be the 3 modes of material nature. So that is being discussed today. So why it is important is the soul is conditioned by the 3 modes. The soul by its original nature is Satchit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. But currently, because of the influence of the 3 modes, it is experiencing Asat, Achit and Nirananda. Or he thinks that I am temporary, he thinks that I am ignorant, and he is not able to experience any happiness. So therefore, Krishna glorifies the pure knowledge. Pure knowledge means knowledge about the soul, knowledge about the Supreme Lord, how they are transcendental to the 3 modes. Now, how did this living entity come in contact with Prakriti? Because they are 2 incompatible things. Living entity is conscious, material nature is not conscious. Now, how this contact happened? Now, next is how the material modes bind the pure Jiva. Although a living entity is superior to the material nature, still he is bound. Just like when we are healthy, compared to us, the virus is very small. But in an unhealthy condition, we will succumb to the effect of such an insignificant entity. Next is how to recognize a person who the predominance of a mode. Because this modes are 3 modes are there. One mode sometimes dominates over the other. So we see among us also people and objects. Some persons tend to dominate at one point of time. And we know they are bad or good or passionate or ignorant. But still they get powers. How is it? How such one particular mode becomes prominent? So what is the effect of this conditioning by the modes? Especially it affects our destination after death also. While living also it affects us, and when after we die also, it determines our next birth. So that's why it is very important. And what is the result of action in different modes? Supposing I choose to remain in a particular mode and not progress further, because every person is comfortable within that mode. A person who is ignorant wants to continue to remain ignorant. One who is passionate wants to remain like that. But then the problem is that will cause us to do actions for which we have to face the consequences. So next it's talking about how to transcend the modes, or guna atita, means how to keep the modes under our control. Just like if you are sailing on the ocean, it is good because it helps to facilitate your movement. But if you are not able to control the waves, then you drown. So the modes are not a problem as such, but how you manipulate the modes is very important. So another thing is, first we should know how the three modes are the actual doers, because in the earlier sessions we saw that Krishna says that who is the doer and non-doer. The soul is not the doer. Material nature is only the doer. Just like when I came here, I came in a vehicle. I am not the vehicle. Vehicle only is doing the function of movement. And because I am sitting in the vehicle, I could move. But by myself, I cannot move at the speed of the vehicle. So similarly, material nature is actually the doer. Because the living entity identifies itself with material nature, it thinking because of the false ego that I am the doer. So this has to be very clearly understood, that what the soul cannot do anything in this world by itself. Material nature only can do that, also under the control of the Supreme Law. And what will be the result of transcending the modes? The result of conditioning by the modes we have seen earlier. Then if you transcend the modes, what will be the benefit? So now Arjuna also questions about the symptoms of a person who has transcended the three modes. How does he behave? And how we can transcend the three modes by performing a pure devotion and realize our true nature, and how Krishna is the source of that Brahman, which is transcendental to the three modes. So this is a quick summary of this chapter. So now this the earlier chapter, Krishna had explained how these three modes are the cause of repeated birth and death. Just like if you are sitting in a merry-go-round, a giant wheel, because you are in that wheel, you have to keep on rotating. There's no way that you can move forward, because the wheel is, the axle of the wheel is stationary, and as long as it's rotating, you have to stuck to the wheel only, like a giant wheel, unless you get down and start walking. So, because the body has to go through the 6 changes from birth to death, the soul also seems to be going through these 6 changes. So in this chapter, Krishna is explaining about these 3 modes of material nature, how they work, how they bind the living entity, and how they are overcome by the process of devotion. So first 13 verses are explaining how the soul becomes conditioned by the material modes. Here it says material modes, which means they are temporary. They are for a specific purpose. And so what is the conditioning? I already explained. The soul by nature is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. But in the conditioned state, it forgets its eternal identity, knowledge, and bliss feature and form. The soul also has a form. But when it becomes conditioned, its form seems to be changing, because it identifies itself as the body which is changing. So form means also name, qualities, activities. So therefore Krishna first begins to glorify pure knowledge, which means pure knowledge means knowledge about, we saw in the 13th chapter, what is knowledge. Krishna had explained the 20 elements of acquiring knowledge. What knowledge means: knowing about the Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, Nyayam. 6 questions Arjuna had asked in the 13th chapter about the material nature, enjoyer, the soul and the super soul. What is knowledge? What is the object of knowledge? Who is the knower of the body? So all these 6 questions were asked and answered. So then Krishna, the first text talks about how this knowledge is very important. Param bhujam parakshami jnanam jnananam jnanamuttamam yajñatva munaya sarve paramsha siddhim ito gataha. Again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge. So yes, Krishna says, again I shall declare. Some things have to be emphasized, repeated. So although to some extent he has explained about the 3 modes or material nature, again he is repeating because it's of its importance. And again he says the best of all knowledge. Because material nature is also required for a purpose. If you know the purpose, it is beneficial. If you don't know the purpose, then it may harm you. So knowing which all sages have attained the supreme perfection. So why it is important? Because sage, very wise people, saintly wise people, sage means sagacious, sagacious means wisdom. So they have attained the highest perfection by knowing about these three modes, although it is inferior to the living entity. So what is the result of this knowledge? Idam jnanam upasritya mama sadharmyam agataha. So by taking shelter of this knowledge, one can attain the same nature or form as mind. What is the same nature as form of mind? Krishna is able to subdue this material nature. In the 7th chapter itself, Krishna says, Mama Maya Duratya Mameva Prapadyante Mayametam Tarate. So this three modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome. Just like it is very difficult to swim on the ocean. We may be very expert Olympic swimmer, but ocean means nobody can swim across. So similarly, these three modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, but one who surrenders unto me, just like if you climb on an aircraft, it can easily cross across the ocean. So one can attain nature form as mind, which is Satchidananda Vigraha. Just like a caterpillar is there, it is crawling on the ground very slowly, but as it develops itself wings and becomes a butterfly, this nature is completely different. Sargepi Nopajayante pralayena vyatanticha. This is also another important. One is freed from repeated birth and death. Actually, the soul has no birth and death, as we saw in the 2nd chapter. Just like in a dream, we are dreaming so many things happening to us. But once we wake up, we see nothing is happening to us. So right now, we are thinking I am born and dying. So that becomes free and doesn't take birth again in universal creation or experience the pain of death at universal dissolution. So just like a prisoner is there, a prisoner is bound to the prison. But sometimes a visitor comes to the prison. The visitor comes to help the prisoners by educating the prisoners, but he is not bound by the prison. He can very well go out. So similarly, even the devotee may have to take birth again, but he is not conditioned by the birth, death. It doesn't affect him. Just like an actor is there, he's acting as if he is a young person in the same movie. He becomes old and maybe dies also, but that's just for the movie's sake. It is not happening to him. So now Krishna will begin to explain the relationship between these three important things, that is the living entity, the material nature, and the Supreme Lord. So this constitutes real knowledge because they are eternal. Now, how does this jiva come in contact with Prakriti? Just like when we got infected with some disease, we try to analyze how we contacted that disease. So here it says Lord impregnates Prakriti, which means Prakriti cannot function by itself. Nature cannot produce anything. Just like people think that so many things are happening in nature on its own by some reaction or some biological process. But unless there's a spirit soul, Prakriti cannot change. Although we say that Prakriti goes through the 6 changes, just like my vehicle was moved because I was in the car. Although ultimately the vehicle is only moving, but unless I sit and switch on or do something, it won't move. Similarly, this Prakriti, it is able to produce. It produces in the sense it is able to create the bodies and the planets for all the living entities. But that is made possible by the Lord's sanction. But here it says impregnates, which means he desires. So here it says Mahat Brahma. Mahat Brahma or Mahat Tattva. So why it says Mahat Tattva? Because it belongs to the Lord. It is under his full control. Just like I am using these facilities, but they don't belong to me. So, but in this case, this Brahma, Mahat Tattva, material nature, unmanifested form of material nature, is under his control. And Prakriti is called Mahat because it extends through all space and time, place and time, continuously. In other words, it is prevalent everywhere. There is no place you can say there is no material nature. It is called Brahma because it is the cause of expansion. So Krishna is the father and Prakriti is the mother. This is like one kind of way to understand things. So when we understand how a child is born, how a child gets a body. It is because the man and female unite. Similarly, it is explained that Sarva Yonishu Kaunteya. Murtaya means giving birth. Sambhavanti ya. Murtaya. Tasam Brahma Mahadyonet Aham Bija Pratipita. All species of life. Here it says all species of life. It's not that one species was the cause for another species. Simultaneously, all species come into existence. How? Because there are 84 lakh species. 3 modes of material nature, Sattva, Rajan, Tamo, Guna. When they keep on combining, you get 84. So these are different varieties of enjoyment. The soul, all the souls have the same capacity to enjoy. But the variety is different. Like in one particular body, you can fly. In one particular body, you can swim. In one particular body, you can run very fast. So each body is designed for one kind of enjoyment, but nevertheless, the capacity to enjoy is the same. So this is made possible by birth in this material nature. I, as Mahavishnu, am the seed-giving father. Just like we say seed money. Seed money means you invest in some venture. I put the first investment. So here seed means how does he give the seed? By glancing. Just by his glancing, he can impregnate. So that is the capacity of the Lord. Sometimes we hear the story of how Kunti begot the Pandavas. So the demigods, by their seeing itself, they can beget. Now the question is how this material mode, which is inferior Prakriti, is able to bound the superior Prakriti, that is the living entity. How the living entity is superior? Because it is conscious. It is part and parcel of the law. So Sattvam Rajas Tama iti Guna Prakriti Sambhava Nibadnanti Mahabahu Dehi Dehinam Avyayam. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. This is how material nature is. By creation itself, it is like this. It is while creating itself, it has these 3 components. Just like when this laptop is there, it is in 3. Some components are there. Otherwise, you cannot call a laptop separately. Each part you cannot call it. When it is assembled in a certain way, you call it like that. So material nature, by design itself, it has these 3 components: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Are produced of material nature. Since the material nature initially it doesn't have these divisions, or even if it has, they do not manifest themselves. But then they become evident after some time. These 3, just like a white light is there, the different colors are not visible initially. But when you send it through a prism, then all the colors separate out. So likewise, these 3 modes are unmanifest in the Mahat Tattva, and they become manifest gradually and then keep on. They bind the changeless living entity in the material body. So again, how it is made possible? By the Supreme Lord. Just like how the prisoner is put in the prison, he doesn't voluntarily go and sit in the prison. There are some rules by which he is sentenced to the prison. So because the living entity wants to have some enjoyment or needs to be conditioned in a certain way, why they send him to the prison? To rectify him. So similarly, to rectify the living entity, he is bound by the 3 modes of material nature. So now Krishna talks about how the bondage varies from one guna to another. So first he is talking about the bondage by Sattva guna. How do you identify a person who is controlled predominantly by the Sattva guna? Sattva means goodness. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam shukat sangena padnati jnana sangena cha anaga. Anaga means a sinless one. Here Krishna is addressing Arjuna sinless, which means he is saying that Arjuna is transcendental to the 3 modes. The mode of goodness is the purest of the 3 modes. Comparatively, relatively, here everything is relative. Nothing can say absolute. So similarly, among these 3 modes also, the mode of goodness is purest. It is illuminating, which means a person generally who is bound by the Sattva is little intelligent or knowledgeable, and frees one from sins and distress. By nature, he doesn't commit much mistakes, and therefore he doesn't suffer the consequences also. Those situated in this mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness. But the problem with this mode is they identify themselves with one kind of happiness. They think that this is what makes me happy, and then they don't want to move from that. Just like if you are comfortably seated in this chair, you would not like to move from there. So similarly, one who is conditioned by the mode of goodness, he thinks that this is it. I am comfortable, and that's why some people you go and tell them to change their lifestyle. They say, no, I'm comfortable. So that is the problem. Those sit in the mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. And moreover, whatever knowledge they have, they think that's the ultimate. I don't need to know more, or I don't know any less. So this is how they think. So that is the problem. Just like some people don't want to upgrade their knowledge or skills. They think that whatever I have is more than sufficient. Now, what about people who are in bondage by the mode of passion? Rajo ragatmakam viddhi, trishna sanga samudbhavam, tan nibadnati kaunteya, karma sangena dehinam. Okay, the mode of passion is born of desire. So they're always desiring. There's nothing wrong with the desiring because it is our nature. But unwanted desires, which is not required. So the mode of passion is born of desire, attachment for the attained and longing for the unattained. So they're always thinking that I should get something. Even if they have everything that is required, they think I need more. And if they get something, they think this is it. This belongs to me. I should, at any cost, I should keep it with me. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material food. So what he has to do is constantly is very active. He thinks I have to do so much to get this, and having got that, I have to do so many things to maintain it. So he works more than required. And moreover, for this, he always needs the company of the opposite. So here it says attraction between man and woman. The point here is, if you have something, you are not satisfied. You want something different from the always different, something different. So they think they have to. They are dependent on someone who is different from them. Although they can do it by themselves, they think, no, I cannot do it. I need something. I need this person to combinedly do something. So and when the passion is increased, one develops hankering for material enjoyment. So when he is working so hard, obviously he is going through some trouble due to the hard work. So he is looking always for some remedy or enjoyment. So one side he is working hard, and to overcome the pressures of that hard work, he wants some relaxation. So that's why I see people, one moment they're very hardworking, then suddenly they're going relaxing. So and becomes bound to his activities, which means his activities become very narrow. He can only, if you ask him, he will say, I'm very busy, always busy. What about tamoguna, the person in the mode of ignorance? Tamas tajnanajam viddhi mohanam sarvadehana. Here, mohanam is the word, very important. Pramada means illusion. Alasya means laziness. Nidrabhi, sleep. Tan nibadnati Bharata. So it is born of ignorance. By nature, they are ignorant. They don't know anything. They don't want to know anything also. And delusion. Delusion means they see everything as opposite. They look at things in the reverse way. And this mode binds the jiva with madness. By nature, they are mad. They do everything which will disturb themselves and others. And lazy. Very inertia. Lot of inertia they have to. If they, like Kumbhakarna was there, to wake him up, they had to struggle. And having woken him up, to control him was also a problem. Sometimes lazy people, they're so lazy, to wake them up is very difficult. And once they wake up and they're too hyperactive, then again to calm them down is not so easy. And sleep. Sleep means not only physically sleeping, mentally also, they're intellectually also, they're very sleepy. And what is the summary? Goodness conditions one to happiness, which means the person in the goodness is always looking for happiness. He does slightest discomfort, he cannot tolerate. That's also not good. And passion conditions one to fruitive action, which means they're always looking for some result. I did this, I should get some result. But you know very well that not all activities produce some result, or need not produce. And ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. So a person who's in the mode of ignorance, he just doesn't know what he's doing or why he's doing and what he should be doing. Now, how do you recognize this? So because there's always a competition. Why it is difficult? Supposing I have same person in the morning he's behaving some way, afternoon he behaves something, and evening is totally different person. There's one story known as this strange Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The same doctor, he's a Dr. Jekyll, but in the evening time he becomes very demoniac. So this competition among modes. Sometimes the person is good, and sometimes he is very passionate, and sometimes he's too lazy, and so he loses control over himself. He himself doesn't know why he is behaving like that. There are many instances like that. Now these modes appear, disappear according to operational exhaustion of will. So what is driving a person to behave like this? The past actions. He is habituated. Past habits die hard. There's a statement. So once a person becomes habituated to something, that starts dominating over him, and he just cannot get over it. So this we can see in his dealings, how he relates with people, what type of activities he does. And but one who's doing this, wants to do devotion, he has to overcome these three modes. Because, so transcend these three modes. Transcending means doesn't mean he completely rejects it. He utilizes it under to his favor. Just like an aircraft is there, it needs the runway. It cannot keep always flying in the sky. It has to touch base and again lift off from here. Similarly, three modes can serve a purpose. Like one martial art movie was there, that sixth chamber of Shaolin. So there, one water body is there, on that wooden log will be there. So they are trained to just jump on that and cross over the water body. So that needs some practice. So like that, these three modes are useful, but provided we know how to transcend them. So when goodness increases, all the 9 gates of the body. So there are 9 holes in our body. 2 eyes we have, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 2 nose, 2 eyes, 2 ears, and then anus and genitals. So like this, to these are illuminated by knowledge, which means they are utilized properly, because the life air is flowing through all these things. Then only they are functioning properly. But here it says illuminated by knowledge means they are utilized in the best possible way. And happiness, illuminated by knowledge and happiness. One can see, hear, and taste things in the right position. So they serve the purpose. Eyes are there, ears are there, nose, tongue, all this, they are utilized properly and they serve the purpose. But when passion increases, passion means desire, unwanted desires. The symptoms of greed, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankerings develop. So how do you recognize a person who's passionate? He is very greedy. Greedy means he tries to own more than required. An animal is there, if you put one bag of rice, it will take only as much as it required. But a human being, immediately he will take the entire bag, although he doesn't need for that particular day. Have you seen any animals being greedy? So here, symptoms of greed, fruitive activity. Fruitive activity means always he is looking for some result oriented. Previously, when cricket was there, it used to have a 6-day match. Which means they were not so interested. Of course, they wanted a result, but they were patient to wait for the result so that they can see how well the player is performing. But now, because they're putting so much restrictions, the quality of the game is also changing. And intense endeavor, more than required. Uncontrollable desire and hankering. Hankering means always they are feeling something lacking. I need more, I need more. And what about the mode of ignorance? Darkness, aprakashaha, which means by nature he is ignorant of many things. And therefore he is inertia. Apravritti means to motivate him to work is very difficult. And once he is doing some wrong work, to stop him to do that, suppose a person is addicted to some bad habits. To make him give up the bad habit is very difficult. And to make him develop good habits also equally difficult. So that is inertia. Madness, pramada means mad person means illusion. Pramada, illusion. And moha, moha means illusion. Pramada means mistakes. Here pramada means tendency to do mistakes. He is mostly doing the wrong thing. Discrimination is. So what is the effect of this conditioning by the modes? First of all, they have short-term and long-term effects. Short-term means in this lifetime itself, we can see the effects of the three modes. And long-term is after death. We can see people previously, they could see what is the next birth of the person. Right now, we don't even know what's happening in this life, what to speak of the next birth. But previously, they could see what's the next birth of a person. So, particularly now it is telling about the destination after death. Because just like if you're preparing for a course, you want to know after this course what I will do. That's why known as a professional course, which means you're looking for some job immediately after this course or some further opportunity. Goodness, the person in the mode of goodness, he achieves higher planets of great sages like Brahmaloka or Janaloka. So why, just like why you wanted to come to IIT, you could have gone to any bigger university there, so many universities there, because there's a quality that is maintained here. So in higher planets, there's a standard of living, which is much better than the lower planets. So but they are promoted to these higher planets. And then what about passion? They are birth among those engaged in fruitive activity. They are born among people who are always active, unnecessarily active on the earthly planet. Because in the heavenly planets, you don't have to work hard for those enjoyment. Because already you have worked while you are in the earth planet. And therefore, you are promoted to heavenly planet. Without much effort, you get all the comforts there. Just like we see some people, just to make the daily living, they have to work so hard. But other person is simply, without much work, is earning the same money. And ignorance is birth in the lower species of the animal kingdom, which means lower species means the capacity to enjoy. Capacity, of course, I said is the same, but the type of enjoyment is very limited. That is the lower species or animal kingdom. What is the result of that? Is as far as the destination after death. Then what about the result of the action in the mode of goodness? It is without distress, nirmalam, purity without distress. It produces purity. Supposing you have to make someone pure, like gold is there, you have to purify the gold. It is much easier to purify gold compared to other metals. So similarly, to make a person in the mode of goodness to behave purely, it is easier without distress. Nirmala. For him to promote, it's very easy. And it is producing knowledge. By nature, higher or heavenly planets, the result of action in the mode of goodness is you get elevated to heavenly planets where people, just like you see how a person is performing depends on his surroundings. If the surroundings are one way, why people want to go abroad? Because the work culture is different. So similarly, in the higher planets, they work in a certain way. So, and therefore, here it says Urdhvam or Brahmaloka. Brahmaloka means the highest planetary system where Brahma resides. And then you have passion, it produces misery. That's why people become diseased. Those who are passionate, they become diseased. Very often the mental stress is going on, mental diseases. All this happen for a mode of passion. And they are greed, which means they try to accumulate more than required. Even though they see that other person is struggling for their living, he wants to hoard those requirements. And therefore they remain on this earthly planets. They don't, sometimes we see the person, they are stuck to, like in Bombay, we see people are traveling very long distances and they come also from Pune. Morning, they start from Pune, come to Bombay, then go back to Pune. Or from Pondicherry, they come to Chennai and drive back to Pondicherry. Why? They have become so conditioned that they cannot go beyond that. The more ignorance is always foolish, ajnana. He is not aware of many things and he is always mad or he is doing mistakes, innumerable mistakes. illusion, moha means he sees everything the opposite way, and therefore he attains the lower planets, hellish planets. Here, lower and higher means consciousness, level of consciousness. Even in this planet, there are people with higher and lower consciousness. And so it says other. And then having now described the all-pervasive control of modes, Krishna will now describe how to transcend the modes and explains his own position in relation. So why Krishna has to explain? Because he is already transcendent the three modes. And just like if you are already inside a well, someone who's outside the well only can help you. So Krishna is always beyond the three modes, whereas we have a tendency to become controlled by the three modes. So he's telling how to transcend. And so here we need to first discriminate. First of all, we should know the differences. So therefore, first one should know to realize that he is not the body. So he should take help from Krishna. Just like we go to the doctor, supposing I become diseased, even a doctor, sometimes he becomes diseased. He has to approach another doctor only. He cannot say that I am already a doctor, so I will cure myself. So we have to take shelter of Krishna. And first of all, we should know what are the gateways. Seeing the modes as the doers and the Lord as transcendental. Right now we are thinking that I am working, but actually the material nature is doing all the actions. So if we do our role, material nature naturally, just like when I'm doing my class, the person who is arranging this room, he is doing his job and going. I need not have to tell him. But he understood that this person will do his job. My job is to arrange the hall, everything. He did it. Similarly, material nature will do its job, whether you tell it or not. But we think that under my control only material nature is working. So we end up not doing. Supposing I get distracted from this class and start doing the job of the other person, then I don't do my work. So when one sees that there is no other performer of action than the material mode, so material nature will do its job. You don't have to worry about it. And you cannot do the job of material nature also. That we should understand. That the Supreme Lord and even the Jiva is transcendental to the mode, which means he doesn't have to do what he thinks he should be doing. And he attains my spiritual nature, crossing beyond this material existence. Just like if you go to a high court, the clerk is there, he's doing a lot of paperwork all the day and he's getting very little salary. And the high court judge is also coming to the same court, but he's simply sitting in the chair and hearing the arguments and maybe signing papers, documents, whatever. And he's getting much bigger salary. How is that? Because he is in knowledge. He knows that this is my job. I don't have to do the other person's job. So this is the. So when can one surpass the modes associated with the body? This body is actually made of the three modes. And when we come in contact with the body, we forget our transcendental nature. So that is the problem. So the problem with the body is it has to go through this birth, death, old age, and distress. So if we know that just like my vehicle is there, vehicle due to wear and tear, I have to keep on maintaining it. So, but it is different from me. So similarly, the body has to undergo these changes, but the soul has not. So now Arjuna is asking Krishna about how to transcend the modes. First, Krishna has explained that he should transcend the three modes. First, someone should motivate you for something. And then a person should explain to you what is the way and the means and the how do you now how do I know that I have come out of the influence of the three modes? Just like a person when he got infected by the virus, these are the symptoms that he's got infected. Then how he is recovering or not recovering, and how he is cured. So there are some indications. So this what Arjuna wants to know. So first is what are the symptoms by which I can recognize a person who is transcending the three modes. Just in the second chapter also, Sita Prajna, he wants to know who is a person in knowledge. How do you recognize? Supposing all of you are there, I don't know who is doing which course. So how do I recognize you? So once I go and see you acting in the lab, then I know this fellow is must be a chemical engineer or whatever, by your actions. Till then I do not know. So similarly, what are the symptoms of a person who's transcended the three modes? What is his behavior? Symptoms means without his acting, I can recognize. Now, for example, by the way you are listening to me, I can understand maybe this person is intelligent. But then when you enact that, what you heard, then I can understand a little more. That is the behavior. And what is the process of transcending the modes? Now Krishna answers Arjuna's questions about a person who stands in the three modes. What are the symptoms? First thing is he doesn't hate illumination. What does it mean? If you give him knowledge, sometimes if you try to give knowledge to people, they hate you. They say, don't preach to me. Don't tell me all this. I am not interested. So that is a problem. So, but a person, if you tell him, yes, I want to hear, please tell me. Like that a person will say. So a person doesn't hate illumination, attachment, doesn't hate attachment and delusion. So sometimes attachment also required. So some people are not able to be attached to one person. They want to break the relationship. That is also, they want to live with that relation. They know there is a problem, but still they want to. So they don't mind being attached to something. Sometimes delusion is also required. Just like when you're in a movie theater, you switch off all the lights. That the purpose of the switching off the light is so that you can watch the screen. It's not to put you in darkness. So sometimes delusion is also required. Just like you're watching a movie, that's one kind of a delusion because you're entering into a virtual world, but you're trying to understand something. So that's why you're in that situation. So even delusion is required. And when they are present or long for them and they disappear. So he accepts the world in the right attitude. He doesn't try to drastically change the world around him. Some things are very good, some things are very bad, something is illuminating, something is all that is. He accepts them in their own way. What is the behavior? How is his external contact? He is neutral, udasina, and undisturbed by the reactions of the modes. He sees all around him, so many things are happening, changing. The same person today, he's very friendly to you, suddenly becomes enemy or neutral. Today he's very rich, very beautiful, and suddenly his nature changes. All that, he doesn't get disturbed by all these changes. Therefore, and he understands that this is the way the modes are acting. And equal to happiness and distress. So what happiness and distress again is very relative. What is happiness for the person in the mode of goodness may be distress for the person in the mode of ignorance. And firmly situated in the self. So how he is able to remain equal to happiness? Because he knows that he is getting happiness from the soul. Just like if you are enjoying your food, whatever happening around you will not disturb you, isn't it? So he sees a lump of earth, a stone, gold as the same. Sama losh prashma kanchanaha. So how does it mean? How can we say that earth, stone, and gold are the same? They are same in the sense that each one has its purpose. Supposing I want to hammer some nail, I have to use a stone. I cannot use a piece of gold because gold is not very hard. Or I cannot use earth also for that purpose. And sometimes you have to use earth to make a mud pot. You cannot use a stone to make a pot, or gold to make a pot because gold is going to be expensive. So which one is useful when? That is very relative. So sometimes earth may serve a purpose where stone and gold cannot be used, and stone may serve a purpose when earth and gold cannot be used. So equal towards dear and not dear. Tulya priya priyo apriyo. Which means someone is very dear to me. Means there's a purpose. Someone doesn't like me also, there's a purpose. Just like a politician is there, some of them people appreciate him, some criticize him. But both are required for a healthy growth. Equal towards praise and blame. Both are related. Sometimes a person may not criticize you. He may always be very loyal to you. That's also not good. Foolish friend. Intelligent enemy is better than a foolish friend. So sometimes this praise and blame have good and bad. Equal in honor and dishonor. So honor and dishonor is very subjective. Today some people may honor me, and tomorrow they may dishonor me. Just like today I may have some designation. Because after I retire that I don't have the designation. So people may not respect me when I'm out of that post. So it doesn't matter. Treats friend and enemy alike. So it says Tulya. Tulya means equal. Mitra Ari. Mitra means friend. Ari means enemy. Pakshayo. So just like if you are playing a game, Some people are cheering you, some people are booing you. But okay, you have to be sportive. So why that person is friend and my enemy is because of my past activities. You should understand like that. Renounces all material activities. Sarvarambha parityagi. Does it mean he stops all activities? He says renouncing. Renouncing means he doesn't try to dictate the results of an activity. Because we'll see in the later chapter, any action you do involves 5 factors. So those 5 factors only determine the result also. Just like some exams are there, that panel only can decide. An individual is not deciding the result. The panel has to decide the result. So similarly, this renouncing all material activities means he doesn't try to dictate the results of his activities. Now, how to transcend the 3 modes? By pure bhakti. Pure bhakti means only Krishna can help us to transcend the 3 modes. Supposing you have a very serious disease, you go to one doctor, go through one treatment, it doesn't serve, then you go to another doctor. Is it better or going to one particular doctor who has the real capacity? So similarly, even Brahma cannot, Brahma, Shiva, they cannot transcend, they even up to Brahma. Maybe Brahma is controlling the mode of goodness. But this transcending 3 modes is only possible for the Supreme Lord and his devotees. So, one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances. So you cannot hold on. Supposing a train is going to one destination, you cannot simultaneously board a number of trains. There's only one particular train which goes to that destination, at least at that point of time. Or you have the ticket for that only. Similarly, only a pure bhakti. Bhakti means devotion. And at once transcend the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahma. In other words, the process of transcending 3 modes is very easy if you follow the right path, and it's very difficult if you take the wrong path. You might have noticed this many times. If you follow the Google directions properly, very quickly you reach, but somewhere you get lost, and half an hour, 1 hour you are rotating, and eventually you miss the program. So, now here, this conclusion, it says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasyaya yasya cha shashvatasya dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. I am the basis or shelter of the impersonal Brahman. Now, why does Krishna say this? There is the Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. So people take shelter of this impersonal Brahman. Just like a person is there in the jail, and he thinks that if I somehow manage to come out of the jail, that is freedom. So that is this impersonal Brahman realization. But even after he comes out of the jail, nobody is going to welcome him with a job or something like that, because they will ask, what did you do in the past 5 years? And he says, I am in the jail. No, who will give you a person a job, a jail, who has come from the... So Krishna says, I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is constitutional position or platform of the ultimate bliss. So he is the person has come out of these 3 modes, but every likelihood that he will again fall back. Just like a person may recover from disease and again get back the disease. So many relapse, we call it. Cancer is there, a person recovers from cancer, but again remission happens. Or an aircraft is there, it goes out of this, goes into space and again falls back into this earth. So there are so many, or water is there, it boils and then again condenses back to water. So this is the problem. This impersonal Brahman is, it's a temporary situation. The person cannot remain in that position unless he takes help of the Supreme Brahman, Supreme Lord. Okay, this is the 14th chapter, and we'll go to the 15th chapter. Is the one of the shortest chapter. Can you help me? 15th chapter entitled Yoga of the Supreme Person. This is another very important chapter. It has the essence of Bhagavad Gita in 3 verses. So 10th chapter also is giving the essence in 4 verses, 8, 9, 10, 11. Similarly, this 15th chapter is giving the summary of Bhagavad Gita in the 3 verses towards the end of the 15th chapter. Many people recite this verse known as the Purushottama Yoga. Purusha means the enjoyer. Uttama means supreme enjoyer. So although we are struggling, just like we are trying to solve a problem and we are struggling and we come across an expert, for him it is effortless. So similarly, although we are struggling to overcome the 3 modes, the Supreme Lord is by nature always in control. So we have to connect with him. So how do we move from the material to the spiritual world? It's a question of transforming our consciousness. Just like the same person is diseased, same body only, it is currently diseased. And when he recovers, he's also having the same body. So similarly, the material or spiritual is related to our consciousness. How is that possible? By detachment and surrender. So what is detachment? We are not able to decide how much I should hold on to something and when I should let go of that. The detachment means when to be attached, and just like some salt is there, I should know how much salt is required. If I put 2 less or 2 more is also a problem. Anything in less or more is going to be a problem. So detachment means to know exactly what is required of this material world. And surrender. So how surrender means you should also simultaneously, just like an aircraft is there, it needs the ground also to run. To attain some velocity, it has to run on the ground. But after it goes off the ground, it has to manipulate the air only. It doesn't have the support of the ground anymore. It has to fly by manipulating the wind. So different mechanics are involved. Similarly, how do we go from the material to spiritual world? 2 things are required: detachment and surrender. Even in the 5th chapter, Krishna is telling about how to control the mind by detachment and suitable practice. Abhyasena to vairagyena. You should give up something and accept something. Just when I'm walking, I have to put 1 foot forward and then only I can release the foot from behind. Both have to synchronize. So these are the ways to transfer from the material to spiritual. So an analogy is given of a banyan tree. A banyan tree, if you go, it is on the bank of a water body. And there you can see the topmost portion of the banyan tree is the bottommost. So in other words, even while you are in this material world, we can get a glimpse of the spiritual world. Just like even though you are not in a foreign country, by staying in this country, if they tell you in the foreign country it is like that, then by looking at your country, you can extrapolate and understand. That is, so from the branches of this banyan tree are compared to just like you give an analogy to explain something. The analogy of banyan tree is used because the banyan tree is very vast compared to all the trees. Is very vast and it's very difficult to figure out which is the original root and which is the trunk or branch, because it has grown so big that they don't know which is the original trunk. So similarly, in this material world, we are not able to understand which is the head and tail. So the branches are the planets, which means people are situated in different positions, and that position gives them particular strength. A person in the US, he has one particular strength. So by position, different positions, we get different strength. So in this material world, people are differently situated. And the 3 modes are the watering process. Whichever mode you cultivate, that will decide your position. If you cultivate the mode of goodness, by watering it, then you build that. And accordingly, you have one destination. Twigs are the sense objects. Now, how do these modes get the strength? By depending on which you focus. The eyes, which senses you use, depending on that, you can build certain mode. That's why sometimes we say you close your eyes. Because by opening your eyes, you are likely to, just like Vishwamitra was there, he got distracted by hearing. But till then, it was under control. The moment he opened his eyes, he got attracted and fell down. So the 3 modes are the watering process, depending on which cultivate. Then how do you cultivate those particular modes? By using our senses. So that's why these twigs are compared just the twigs are the ones which are attached to the branch, and the twigs, they come down and they hold on to the ground, and then those branches will get the strength. If you see, observe carefully a banyan tree, the branch is there. From the branch, one root comes down and attaches to the ground, and then it gets applied. So the sense objects, they promote these three modes: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Depending on how you utilize these sense objects, one particular mode can build up, and secondary roots are fruitive activities. So now how we become attached to one seeing. Supposing we see people are always sitting before the laptop. That is, they are fruitive. They active means they want to achieve certain result. So then what happens? They all the time they have to sit before the computer. All the time they have to sit and hear. So like that, these actions, they condition the sense objects. Depending on what activity you have to engage that particular sense, and depending on which sense you engage, sense object, that will determine which mode will control you, and depending on which mode controls you, you attain different planets and different types of association. So what is the solution? Cut the tree of material world with the axe of detachment. Just like a very huge tree is there, how can you bring the tree down? It's very difficult if you keep on trying to cut all the one by one, all the branches, because the branches are already strong. It's very difficult to cut easy to cut a dry branch than a live branch. So what do we do? If you try to cut all one by one, it's going to take time. First you cut down the root, then the whole tree dies. Then all the tree becomes dried up. Then it becomes easy to cut it. So here it says, cut the tree of material with the axe of detachment, which means that when you are in this world, you cannot hold on to things forever. You should know when to let go of certain things. How much time I should spend. Supposing you're doing a course, you should know this is a 4-year course. I should stay here 4. After 4, I should plan to leave that course. So this acts of detachment means in this material world, anything you take around you, relationships or objects, whatever, there's a time allocated for that. Within that time, just like if you buy a fresh packet of milk, I should utilize before the expiry date. So if I try to make use of it after that, is no use. And surrender unto the Supreme, which means we should always take direction from the Lord, because He is the one who is actually controlling this material world. When you are supposing I am here, this place doesn't belong to me. This material world has been created by the Lord, so I have to go as per His directions. And He has put me here means I have to live according to the rules here. At the same time, I have to follow His directions. In this way, when we are making the best use of this world, then we become qualified for the spiritual world. So how do these living entities transmigrate from one planet to another, one body to another? Although he is part and parcel of Krishna. What does part and parcel means? We are also like the Supreme Lord. We are eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. But at the same time, we are parcels. Parcels means we are limited. But the problem is we are struggling in this world. Already we saw the Purusha in the 13th chapter. We are talking about the Purusha. The living entity is also the enjoyer, and the Supreme Lord is also enjoyer. But our enjoyment is limited. Similarly, we are struggling in this world. Although the Lord is also in this material world, He also comes to this world, but He doesn't struggle. Whereas, just like an expert, when you have a problem, you present a problem before an expert. For him, he enjoys solving it. But for you, that problem makes you miserable. Why am I here? Why I have to solve this problem? And how will I solve this problem? So why are we struggling in this world? Due to the 5 senses and the mind. We don't know. Supposing you give me a laptop, very sophisticated laptop, and I don't know how to use it, I become miserable. I would be better off, get rid of this laptop. I'm better off without this. So like that, these 5 senses and the mind becomes the cause for a struggle. If you don't know how to utilize it, supposing I give you a very imported, very expensive car, very best car, but you don't know how to drive, then it becomes the cause of your misery, and you start struggling with it. So like that, these 5 senses in the mind become the cause of struggle, and thus changing material bodies. So he is not satisfied. He gets one set of senses and mind. He's not satisfied with that, and he keeps on changing like that. Although he can become satisfied, but whatever senses and mind God has provided right now, we can be fully satisfied and achieve our goals. But since we don't know how to use the present senses and the mind, we are supposing I don't know how to use this, then you will give me one more laptop. I'll try that, then fail again, then again one more. So like that, we are not satisfied. So this is why the soul transmigrates, and but we don't know see this happening. Subconscious. See, I don't know that my body is changing. Maybe after some time I notice carefully, then only I see the changes happening in the body. Nobody is consciously aware of the changes going on in the body. So nobody is really conscious about when death will happen or when he will be born also. So this is the problem. But there are some people who know before itself they're going to die, they prepare themselves and they're going to get burned. They also know. So now, first of all, we have to appreciate Krishna's position as our maintainer in this world. So it doesn't matter even when we are in the prison. If we know there's a family member waiting for me outside, then I am remaining in hope that yes, he will help me come out, and if I come out, he will greet me, whatever. So while we are in this material world and struggling, still if we can remember God, then by appreciating Krishna's position, then we won't face this struggles that much. So Krishna is our maintainer at the cosmic level, a source of light, sustenance, and juice of life. So how do we know that Krishna is our maintainer? So we are able to experience light around us. Light means knowledge also. Some knowledge we are getting, not that we are in total darkness or total ignorance. So we can appreciate that, okay, someone is there to give me some knowledge, some help. So you can accept that as Krishna's, how he's maintaining us and sustaining, which means whatever we already have, somehow it is remaining with us. Nobody is readily snatching it. And juice of life means some juice we are getting in life. Everyone is, even though he's struggling in life, he's getting some happiness. It's not that completely. Now, Krishna is our maintainer at personal level as digestion, fire, and Paramatma in the heart. Now, someone may ask, no, it is far off for me. I cannot relate anything with God. I don't see God. I don't believe in God. Then Krishna is explaining that you just try to understand how you are able to digest food. That itself very amazing. You cannot create a robot or something which can digest food, but a human being effortlessly is able to digest his food. And how is he able to digest? Because there's some fire in the body. See, the fire is maintained. See, normally, if you put fire, it will produce heat, temperature. But how you are able to maintain body temperature, 37 degrees Celsius? So much energy is being produced in the body, but it's not producing so much heat. So this is a very subtle energy that Lord has invested in our body, by which we are able to digest. And Paramatma in the heart, which means he is always giving us direction. Even the most insignificant mosquito is there. It knows exactly where to suck the blood, how to suck the blood, and how to escape also. Sometimes we have struggled to catch that also. So his Paramatma is guiding all the living entities in their digestion. So what is the summary of Vedas or knowledge? And the Vedanta, Krishna is explaining, if you say a person has got all the knowledge, we should first know that there is the two kinds of living entities. One is the fallible and infallible. Means one person, one living entity, although he is Satchidananda, he becomes conditioned by he has the tendency to become conditioned by the three modes. Whereas the Supreme Lord, he never becomes conditioned by the three modes and never fall down. And therefore, he is beyond the Kshara and Akshara. But actually here, Kshara and Akshara means two types of living entities are there. One living entity is in the material world, one is in the spiritual world. But still beyond them, there is the Supreme Lord. That is Krishna. So this is said to be the essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita, 3 essential verses, 16, 17, 18. That to know that there are two types of living entities, one who is always conditioned or one who is liberated. Just like there are always people outside the jail and people inside the jail. Never the jail becomes empty or never the outside world becomes empty. So like that, there will always be two kinds of living entities. This is the one essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Second essence is that their super soul is beyond this both the fallible and infallible. And the third essence of Bhagavad Gita is that there's Krishna who is superior to, who is the source of the super soul also. Because super soul is concerned is neutral. Just like a judge is there, is neutral. If you go and supposing your father is a judge in the high court, when you meet him in the court, he'll behave as a judge only. But if you meet him in the house, he is much cordial. Similarly, the super soul is concerned, is very neutral. And when the Supreme Lord Krishna is concerned, he can have 4 types of relationship with him. So knowing Krishna means everything. In other words, if you know these 3 things, then you know everything. Knowing Krishna, one engages in his bhakti. So if all this is made clear, you will know exactly why you should do devotion. People think nowadays devotion means sentiment. It's not meant for me. But unless you do devotion, you cannot even survive in this world. So whoever understands this will attain knowledge, realization, and perfection. So knowledge has 3 aspects. One is theoretical. Then you have to understand that theory and then apply it in practice. So all this will come in the process of devotion. Just like when you are eating food, 3 benefits you get. One is it removes your hunger, it gives you nourishment, and you feel satisfied. So this bhakti has this benefit. So quickly, what's the time now? Okay, I'm trying to combine 2 chapters as I told you, and we started late also. Anyway, this material world is analogy is given. This scriptures, they give analogies to understand. Even in material world also, we need analogies. Otherwise, you just cannot understand anything. Right now, whatever we understand is analogical understanding only. So material world is compared to a upside down banyan tree. Why upside down? Because normally a banyan tree, you have a top and a bottom. But just like when you're seeing in the mirror we are using to see our thing, but its lateral inversion is there. The left becomes right, and so that inversion is happening. But similarly, in this world, whatever we experience is completely opposite of what we experience in the spiritual world. Just like when you are diseased, the same food which you like to eat, you cannot eat now. So, urdhvamulam adashaka ashwattam prahurapyayam. So in other words, why banyan tree? Another reason is it's so vast. This world around you is so vast. You cannot understand where it began, where it ended. In Calcutta, there is one forest, but that's actually one banyan tree which grew up into a forest, just one tree. So similarly, this material world looks very complex. But if you understand the root of that whole thing, then it becomes very easy to understand. That there's an imperishable banyan tree, which means this material world can never perish. Even they would drop a nuclear bomb, third world war, any number of wars happen, this world cannot be destroyed. Even if it is annihilated by Brahma also, again it will be formed. Just like if you destroy a building, if I have the blueprint, I can again reproduce that building. So he said that there is an imperishable banyan tree and it has roots upwards and its branches down. So here roots upward means the higher planets. From Brahmaloka only, one by one, all the other planets come into existence. Just like first the prison doesn't come first. No country, they don't start with the prison house first. First they build all the roads, everything, all the infrastructure, and then only they build the prison. So similarly, first Brahmaloka is created and living entities appear on Brahmaloka. Then the other planets are created. Then living entities come to that planet. Like that only it's coming. So here Urdhva means it refers to the higher planets. And the branches down, which means the lower planets. Chandamsi. Chanda means the Vedas. Chanda means meter. There's one type of chanda. So this, whose leaves are the Vedas, just like the leaf is there. It is absorbing the sunlight and chlorophyll is produced, and that because the branches are there, surface area is less, but the surface area is more. So it can absorb the heat and light better than the branch. Although it is, so the Vedas are the source of the knowledge for the people on all these planets. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So whatever is given in the Vedas, you can understand in this world. Just like some theoretical knowledge is there, when you see it in practice in front of you, you understand it better. So whatever is there and theoretically in the Vedas, you can see by observing this world. So here, a tree with its branches, another explanation is given, just like if you go and see a tree on the bank of a river, the topmost portion, supposing a fruit is hanging on the tree, it will appear as if it is in the water. And if you jump into the water, you don't get the fruit because it is not in the water, only the reflection is in the water, but the fruit is hanging up. So similarly, if you try to get happiness in this world or do something in this world, it will not be possible because you are in the wrong place, trying to do in the wrong place. A tree with its branches down, roots upward is the reflection of a tree in water. The tree on this material world is only a reflection of the real tree in the spiritual world. In other words, the spirit soul can do something in the spiritual world. It can be the real doer with the real ego. But in the material world, the living entity cannot do anything. Although it wants to do and it thinks he is doing, it cannot do anything in this material world. And if he actually wants to do something, it is possible only in the spiritual world. So in other words, only when we practice what we have to do in the spiritual world, in the material world, then we qualify to go there. Just like a person is put in the prison, and when in the prison, he is made to do some works, and then maybe they do some studies also nowadays. They are given the facility to learn something, and then once they come out, they are able to function properly. Now, what is the root of desire? Just as the tree's reflection is situated on water, the reflection of the spiritual world is situated in desire. So what is transforming this material world into the spiritual world? What is the switch by which you can just, if I put off one switch, the whole room becomes dark, and I just put on the same switch, this whole room becomes brightened. So what is making me to experience this world as material or spiritual? That depends on the desire. Just like a person is owning a shop, a sweet shop is there. If his desire is to eat the sweets, he cannot make any profit because he'll always be eating the sweets which he has made. But if his desire is to sell, that is for the customer, then he'll profit from that venture. So just as the tree's reflection is situated in water, the reflection of the spiritual world is situated in desire. So depending on our desire, this material, the world is spiritual or material. One can be free from entanglement with material world by cultivating transcendental desire to enter into the spiritual world. So where we are right now is not a problem. What attitude you have right now, that is the main issue. So knowing the Vedas, one who is attracted by rituals of the Vedas is just attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the banyan tree and does not know the purpose of the Vedas. Supposing you are doing your studies very nicely, all subjects, I have seen many students, we do interviews for the students from colleges, and they get very good CGPA also, 9 point whatever. But they are not able to answer even the basic questions, which means that theoretically they have studied, mechanically they have studied something, but they have not understood the purpose. So likewise, if you are doing activities in this world, many people are busy for many things. If you ask them, I'm very busy. But if you try to understand why they are busy, they don't know. So knowing the Vedas means to cut off one's attachment to the tree of material world. So if you're really intelligent, you know what you're supposing. You go to the toilet, you should know I am here for the purpose. I have to finish my work and come out fast. Similarly, in this material world, you should know exactly why you are here, what for, when to get out. So now its branches spreading up and down represents planets with different species. So at any point, if you see, there will be some people above you, some people with you, and some people below you. No? So this is how there's no beginning or end. So there will be always some people in higher planets, some people in the middle planets, some people in the lower planets, and always up and down movement is always there. So on the lower parts of the branches, there are planets with living entities like human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc. So although we say 84 lakh species are there, some species are there in the middle planets, some are in higher planets, some are in lower planets. So you cannot ask, a scientist can ask you, demand, proof. You are saying, scriptures are saying 84 lakh species, but where are the 84 lakh? You can see them only when you go to higher planets. And because if you have to go to higher planets, you have to have a different body. And in that body, you can see planets, species on that planet only. You cannot see the species on this planet. So all these are the reality. And on the upper planets are higher forms of living entities, demigods, Gandharvas. Okay. But here it says Brahmaloka lies at the root. In other words, this concept of human devolution, just like this America was there. The America was originally occupied by the Red Indians. And people had to go from the European countries and settle there. Then only that country became into a prominence. So similarly, these planets were inhabited by people who came from higher planets. So in the Mahabharata, we see that people from higher planets also came to this planet. And it is nourished by the watering process by the three modes. So what causes the living entities to go and be situated in these different planets in different species? It depends on which mode you cultivate, which three modes you cultivate. And what is the cause for the cultivation of three modes? The twigs or the sense objects, Vishaya Pravalaha. Depending on how you utilize these sense objects. I have an eye, ear, nose, tongue, and skin. Depending on how I utilize it, that decides which mode starts conditioning me. And the tips of the branches are the senses attached to the sense objects. Now there's two things are there. Any perception you have the sense and the sense object. Just like I have an ability to see. Even if I close my eyes, I can still see, isn't it? Sometimes you close your ears also, you still hear someone has scolded you, and that person is not scolding you now. Still that sound reverberates in your ear, isn't it? So like that, the senses and the sense objects. This is how this these three modes get nourishment. So even if you close your eyes, if you say, okay, I'll close my eyes, yes, still the senses will be active. In your sleeping state also, our senses are active. So this, whether in the waking sleep or sleeping state, the senses and the sense object being very active, the three modes are growing. Sometimes we see an open field, suddenly some bushes appearing, some thorns are growing, and you remove that, again it comes. So like that, its secondary roots extending everywhere bind the human society to fruitive actions. So as a result of these senses and sense objects, everyone is very active. Without our knowledge, we have become active. That is the cause of this desire ultimately. And what is desire is based on attachment and aversion. Everyone, if you ask him, he will say, I like this very much. If you ask him why you like it, he will say, no, I don't know why, but I like this. And he will say, I don't like this so much. If you ask him why, maybe to some extent he will be able to explain, but sometimes I just don't know, but I don't like it. So this is the problem. Subsidiary roots are attachment and aversion, which are byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sensory, which means all our attachments and aversions, right now I like, I don't like, it's just based on my past experience. There's no logical reason why I should like or dislike, but because I try to understand everything based on my past experience, I become conditioned by my experiences in my past. That's called a phobia. There are different types of phobia. Phobia not necessarily means fear. Phobia can also mean a kind of an attachment or an aversion. A person without reason, he likes to like something or hate something. So these are all because of the past actions. And they have tendencies towards piety and impiety developed from these secondary roots. Which by naturally some person is good, by naturally some person is bad. So why is naturally bad or naturally good? Because of his, again, past actions. And the fruits of this tree are dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Okay, so people, nevertheless, although there seems to be so much chaos, people are doing thinking, doing, talking, and doing so many things, but essentially they fall into these four types of activities. What is that? Dharma. No matter how much chaos there may be there in the thinking, talking, and working, still there is some order in society. Nobody can say there's no order in society. Of course, just like a person is doing a modern art. For a naive person, it looks something scribbling. But a person who knows art, he can say, okay, this means something. So similarly, this dharma means everyone will has to follow some rules. If he follows the rule, what is the benefit? He will get some artha. Artha means some benefit by following rules. Why we don't behave haphazardly? We know we have tried to get something haphazard, it doesn't work. So we have to follow some rules. By following dharma, some set of rules, you get some artha, some benefit. And with that, what you do, the moment you get some benefit, you want to enjoy with that. Okay, with so much hard work I did, I got this, I followed all the rules, and I got this, so I let me enjoy. The natural tendency is to desire to enjoy. And the problem is, even after you enjoy, sometimes you get fed up of that. That's known as the moksha. You want to, this is a natural tendency for all living entities. But this tree is eternal. Abhyayam, in the sense of being continuous. So all the time, any place you go, any time you go, these four activities are happening around, and they are guided by all these desires, different desires, subtle and gross. So basically, we are doing the same thing again and again. So what to do? If you want to stop something you don't want to do, or you want to do something which you want to do but you're not able to do, then detachment is required. Cut the tree with the axe of detachment. In other words, in this world, things are stereotyped. You have very little control. It seems that you have a lot of control, but you're forced to do things in a certain way only. You cannot change set of pattern. So what is required for the detachment? So the real form of the tree, its beginning and end and inundation cannot be perceived in this world, but one must cut this strongly rooted tree with the axe of detachment. Asanga Shastrena. Just like one movie was there, there the hero, he is in a room with so many mirrors, and the enemy is there in that room, and he sees the reflection of that enemy in so many mirrors. He is not able to spot that person where he is. Then what he does, he breaks all the mirrors. So like that, what is the cause for our problem in this world is the attachment. Asanga Shastrena, sharpened by determination, Tridana, which means we should be very precise. In this world, we cannot be this way, that way. We have to be very clear, cut and clear. So just like you go to a doctor, he cannot speculate. He has to follow the rules, medical rules properly. And he should know, supposing he's doing an operation, he should know exactly which nerve to cut and which to join. So like that, we should be very precise in this world. Then one should search for that place. From having gone, one never returns by surrendering unto that original person. First thing is, he should know how to live in this world. And after this world, what is the next world? That also you should prepare. Supposing many people are there, they do very well in this their studies. They come into a foreign country and they fail miserably. I know in my batch also, there was a topper and he got admission to MIT. And once he went to MIT, he got the lowest grade there. He's a topper here and the lowest there. So like that, even if you try to solve the problems in this material world, we should prepare ourselves simultaneously for the spiritual world. So both has to go hand in hand. So what is the surrendering process? Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvandve vimukte sukadukka sanyat gachantya moda padamabhyayapta. It's a very important verse. So what is binding us in this world is the false prestige. False prestige, one should overcome false prestige and illusion, who conquered our false association, which means false association means you artificially create some relationship when it's not existing, or you don't understand a relationship when it's existing. Supposing you have a mother right next to you and you're thinking about someone else, that is a false association. Or you think you're a person not related to you is related to you, that's both false association. So we have to overcome this false association, false prestige and illusion. Who understand, you should know what is eternal, what is temporary, and you can never change the nature. Who are done with material lust. Lust means some things you can never enjoy, but you think I will enjoy. And who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress. So what is becoming free from dualities means if you're attached to happiness, then distress becomes painful. If you're, sometimes the people are so distressed that even if you want to make them happy, they don't want it. So this is a problem. Who are unbewildered know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain that eternal spiritual. So we should know what is the surrendering, how to overcome this false prestige, false illusion, false association, and dualities of happiness, distress. So we should know that there is a person who is beyond all this, and if we take help from him, it is possible. Right now, just like nobody thought I'll get my PhD, but you approached a particular person who already has a PhD, and then you could achieve it. Similarly, although it seems to be very difficult to overcome these three modes, it is possible by surrendering to the Purushottama. So now the Krishna tells what is the benefit of attaining the spiritual world? What is the qualities of the spiritual world? It is not illumined by the sun, moon, or fire, electricity. In this world where everyone is dependent on something else, we are conditional. Conditional means we are always supposing we are depending on the conditions. If you are playing, a player is there, it depends on the playing conditions. But an expert is there, in any condition you put him, he will play well. So similarly, right now we are conditioned by the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. And those who reach it never return to this material world. In other words, one who goes to the spiritual world, he does not depend on unnecessarily on others and other things. And that is the nature of this abode of the Lord. So what is helping us to reach that abode? The mind. So the same mind which is keeping us bound, the same mind can help to liberate us. So first we should understand that we are part and parcel. We have a relationship with God. Supposing you want to go abroad, and usually it's very difficult to get a visa. But let us say you have a family member there. Then he can sponsor your visa and you can go there. So similarly, when we understand that we have a relationship with someone in the spiritual world and we can establish a relationship with him, then just like a person in the prison, how does he escape? He has contact with the person outside the prison. And with that, he coordinates with him and somehow comes out. So similarly, if we have to go out of this material world, we have to connect first of all with the spiritual world. Due to conditional life, they are struggling hard in the material nature with the six senses including mind. So what is binding us to this world? The mind and the senses, six senses. So we shall have to use the same mind and the senses to transcend this material world. And what is the living entity carries its different conceptions of life in the mind from material body to another, just as the air carries the aromas. So whatever impressions we carry, that is what is causing the problem. That's known as samskara. Samskara means there is an impression in the mind that conditions you to some activities and you're not able to get free from that. So we have to do some kind of a brainwashing. So thus, taking another gross body, the jiva obtains new ears, tongues, nose, and sense of touch. What's happening? The person, because of these impressions, he keeps on changing the situation. He tries to change the conditions around him. And he is not happy. Then again he changes. Supposing my eyes are bad, then I wear some spectacles, is not serving the purpose. You go to the ophthalmologist. What is that? First he puts on lens. You are not able to see. Then he changes the lens again. Then finally you arrive at the right one. So that is because problem is originally with my eyes. That's why I have to. So like that, because we have a problem with our mind and senses, no matter whatever body I give you, you are not satisfied. Just like water is there, it becomes contaminated. Again, to get back that original taste and color, it's quite an effort. So now this change is happening very subtly. We don't see the change around us. Suddenly, when death happens, oh, he died. But the death is also not sudden. Although we see some accident suddenly happened, but if you do accident analysis, you understand that accident didn't happen suddenly. It was building up to that state. So similarly, this quitting of the body and staying in the body and enjoying under the spell of material modes is not perceived by foolish people. In the second chapter also it says, Dhiras tatra namuhyate. Asamsi jana yata vihaya navagrina tada sharirani. So Krishna had explained that Dehinosmin yata deve kaumaram yavanjara tata dehantara prastha Dhiras tatra namuhyate. Who is able to perceive these changes happening around him is sober. And one who is ignorant about these changes, that very soon I will die, very soon I will get old. So this, but those who have eyes of knowledge, who have read the scriptures, who have got the direction from a learned person, they can see the changes. Supposing I see a X-ray, I don't understand because I don't know how to interpret it. But if I have the knowledge, I can see distinctly, very clearly, what is happening in the body. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. In other words, you have to endeavor for it. Unless you endeavor, you won't see the change. But those with impure consciousness cannot see this, though they may try. So basically, unless you purify your consciousness, even if the facts are presented to you, just like if I give you the best food and you are sick, it won't help you. And rather, it may cause harm also. So that's why we have to purify our consciousness so that we can benefit by the world in which we are living. So next, Krishna is explaining about how to explain, appreciate Krishna's position as our maintainer in this world. So, although we are in this material world, someone is maintaining this material world with a purpose. If I understand that and appreciate the person who has created this world, then I'll very soon get out of it. So first we have to understand how Krishna is maintaining this entire cosmos, not only my world, but everyone's world. I am the source of light. Krishna is explaining how he is maintaining by the sun, moon, and fire, and he's able to dissipate the darkness. I enter into each planet, and by my energy, I sustain all living beings. So how does the Lord enter? By his energies. He is able to penetrate into all the universes and create all this sun, moon. I become the moon and supply the juice of the life of plants and vegetables. The sun is for a purpose. Sun is also helping the plants to grow. But at the same time, it won't help the fruits and vegetables to grow. Plant will grow, but fruit, flowers, vegetables won't grow. For that, you need the moon. Just like you have some sweet rice. Sweet rice, first you have to boil it in hot milk, increase the temperature. Then you have to cool it by keeping it in the refrigerator. So both are required. Then only you get the sweet taste. So similarly, the sun is required for a purpose and moon is serving a different purpose, complementary purpose. So all this is made possible by the Supreme Lord. And is the digestion fire. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehinam Ashrita Pranapana Samayukta Pachamyannam Chaturvidam. This is the one how we can appreciate God. Every day we are eating. You ask a person who's not able to eat. There are some people who are diabetic or whatever. Even if they are very rich and have provided them all the dishes, they just cannot eat it because their digestive power has gone. So similarly, we have to appreciate that God is providing us the fire of digestion in the bodies of living entities. Different living entities have different capacities to digest. So because their body temperature is different, their bodily system is different, and like an engine is different types of engines are there. They are using the fuel, but they are processing the fuel in different ways and producing different amounts of energy. Similarly, different living entities have different digestive capacities. The mechanism is different. So all this arrangement is made possible by the Lord. I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming. Even all the time, subconsciously, all our hands, legs are working because of the movement of the different types of air. You see, some people are struggling to move their hand or leg because the air movement has been affected. They are not able to talk properly. They are not able to digest properly because of the imbalance in the movement of the air. So how is it made possible? Krishna says that he is that driving force and digests the four kinds of food stuff. When you carefully analyze the food stuff you are eating, some people get their nourishment by drinking. Child is there, you cannot give him solid food. He has to take only liquid milk. And some people, they have to chew the food. Some foods have to be just liquid. And so like that, there are four types of food. Just by you have to suck it out. Sometimes you have to drink it, you have to chew it, and so like that, there are four kinds of food. You use the four different parts of the tongue for that. And different types of digestive juices are produced for that. So all this we don't normally take note of, but if you carefully analyze, all this is made possible by the Lord. So here is explained the chewed food, bhakya, bhojya means sipped, lehya means liquid, and then chusya means sucked. So we are coming to the end. Paramatma, Krishna initiates all acts. So this is the first, I told you in the beginning, the 15th chapter has the 3 essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita, just like the 10th chapter has 4 essential verses. So here, first essential is, I think it will be next, 16, 17, 18. So this is also very important verse. Sarvasya chaham hridisande vishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarve ahameva vedya vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham. The very important verse first says, Sarvaschaham Hridi Sannivishto, I am seated in everyone's heart. So sometimes without our knowledge, we get some intuition. So where is that intuition coming from? A child prodigy is there. He's able to do something we cannot explain how he got that knowledge in this lifetime. So that is coming from the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is guiding that person. I'm seated in everyone's heart. Someone may say some living entities don't have heart. So that means that knowledge that intelligence, you see, smallest of the small, it is also very intelligent. So he is seated in everyone's heart. From me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Why this is required? Why we have to remembrance? Unless you are reminded something, we will remind you. We send a reminder message. So we also need someone to remind us, and we also need to forget. Supposing when I'm sitting here and thinking something else, it will interfere with my present work. So some things we have to forget. Although we don't forget it completely, at least momentarily I have to forget. And knowledge also is required. So if I'm sitting here and I'm all the time remembering and forgetting, that's also not good. Someone should help me. So that knowledge is required, that Krishna is providing. And by all the Vedas, I am to, if whatever knowledge they may be in this world, ultimately it is to help us to understand our relationship with God, other living entities, and material nature. And he says, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, as Veda Vyasa, I'm the knower of the Vedas. So why we should know about God? Because he knows everything, and he is the source of the knowledge, and we have to therefore know him. So moment to moment we forget what we are supposed to do, what we were doing, and what we should be doing. So that Paramatma is, so this verse is essentially telling about how we can perceive God as Paramatma in our heart. Even if you see all living entities, they are doing everything different. No two people are doing the same thing at the same time. So how is that possible? Synchrony. That Paramatma is able to facilitating that. So now Krishna will talk about the essence of Veda. First he is telling that how he is the Vedanta, Veda with and Veda, compiler and the knower. Now in the next three verses, as I told, conclusively establish the position of the Supreme. So first thing is there are two kinds of living entities, Kshara and Akshara. Always there will be two kinds of living entities. One is always conditioned and one is always liberated. And the Kshara, the fallible who deviates from this true nature, infallible who doesn't deviate. There will always be some people who will do mistakes only. Some people will do whatever you do, they will do the right thing only. So this is first thing. And the material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. In other words, you can never find a perfect person in this world. It is going to be a futile exercise. Even if you say there's a perfect person, there will be some defect which you don't recognize. So in other words, don't try for perfection in this world. It is not possible. At the most, you can aim for perfection. That's why you have ideal gases, real gases. So it is not possible to be perfect in this world or expect perfection. But maybe relatively better. But if the same people who is doing all mistakes here, if he goes to the spiritual world, the same person will do everything right. That we have to have faith. There's one Broad Street and Charlie Chaplin movie is there. That particular street, when people come, they start fighting. And once they come out of the street, they're like friends. So like that, in this world, you find always there will be some imperfections, which means some defect is there. And once we overcome that defect, we will act perfectly. The next important verse is, there's always a super soul who's beyond Kshara and Akshara. Why is it that some people are always doing right, and why is it there are some people who are always doing wrong? Because they are under some super soul. They are guided by the super soul. Because one person is already attained perfection. He attained perfection because of the super soul. And one person is doing mistakes all the time and is still being guided by the super soul, even though he's doing such mistakes. Superior to these two, there is the greatest personality called the Param Atma, the Supreme Soul. He has entered the three worlds. That inexhaustible Lord is thus maintaining the worlds. So although he is all perfect, just like sometimes the president also comes to the prison to educate the prisoners. So similarly, the super soul is always present with us in this material world where we are always doing mistakes. No matter how many living entities are there in this material world, everyone is doing mistakes, but there's one super soul who's never doing a mistake. So that we have to remember. The third instruction is Lord Krishna, Yasmat Charam Akitoham Akharat Apichottamaha Atosmi Loke Vedecha Pratita Purushottama. But because I am transcendental, superior to both the fallible, infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. Now, as far as Paramatma is concerned, as I explained to you, he is neutral. Just like if you go and meet your father in the office, He cannot do some things. He cannot embrace you or kiss you in the office because it's a public place or an official place. But if you go and meet him in his home, that's a different place. So similarly, even though the Lord has appeared as Paramatma in this material world, you cannot relate with him in a certain way. You cannot establish the 4 types of relationship. You cannot treat him like your father, friend, son, or your lover, or your servant. Or you cannot be his servant, or you cannot be his friend. But the same thing is possible with him when you go to the spiritual world. So, like that, even the president, let us say he comes to the prison, you cannot relate with him freely. You have to come out of the prison to be with him, get the full benefit of him. So that's how this chapter concludes. Now Krishna is concluding that what is the benefit of knowing about the Purushottama? This chapter is known as Purushottama Yoga. So Yomam evam asammodo janati Purushottamam sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena Bharata. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the know of everything. He engages in devotional service to me in all respects to Sanna Bharata. Here 2 important points are there. We should not doubt this. That this high, supposing if you doubt that there is no director, he doesn't have any control, and there is like then it's a foolishness. There's some control. So like that, this after having heard this, we should accept at least theoretically that Krishna is there, Paramatma is there, fallible, infallible, material nature. This hierarchy is there. And the next, we should know this. Then we have to engage in devotional. So we have to practically apply. After getting this knowledge, okay, we'll test it. That's also practical application. You don't have to accept it blindly. Then, all respects, it says. Even if you don't follow, invariably you will be made to follow this fact. Just like some child is there, it is sitting in the vehicle and going, but he doesn't know that there are traffic rules, policeman is there because its father is taking care of all that. So you may say, I don't recognize all this God's arrangement, God or whatever rules are there. But there are people who know this and they're following them, and because you are holding on to them, you don't see how it's happening. So what is the summary and Falashruti? Thus I have spoken this most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures. In other words, even if you try to get all the knowledge in this world, or you approach some person who has so much knowledge, still you cannot get this knowledge unless it is given by God himself. Just like you cannot see the sun, you cannot create something equivalent to the sun unless the sun itself appears. Whoever understands this will have knowledge and realization and perfection in all his endeavors. Whatever work we are doing right now, we are failing. There's always the possibility you may succeed, you may fail. Never you can say I will always succeed or always fail. There are some people, they say, I thought I will fail, but I passed. I thought I will pass, I failed. So this happens in all endeavors. Whatever little thing or big we do, is always these possibilities are there. But here Krishna says, one who this most confidential knowledge of scriptures, whoever understands this will have knowledge, realization, and perfection in all endeavors. Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam maya anaga. Again, Krishna is telling anaga. Anaga means, oh sinless one. Krishna is constantly encouraging Arjuna to understand and apply this and benefit from this knowledge. Etad buddhva buddhiman syat. He's saying the most intelligent. Krita krityascha Bharata. Okay, thank you. As I said, we are not be having the session on 4th December and 11th December or 18th December. So I'm trying to club 2 chapters in one session. And as such, we started late today. So I hope you don't mind. Any comments or questions? You're welcome. Or if you no doubts, at least what you understood, one important point, takeaway point you can tell so that others also benefit. Yes. The beads are here. Chanting beads. Anyone? Okay, then each one can tell one point, takeaway point, just one point. To the mic. What you understood in this 1.5 hour, 2 hours? I hear one. So that we will be doing also now when we are chanting, we are controlling the mind. Yes. Next.
This point that we should have the eyes of attachment. So you gave the analogy of connecting the leg and simultaneously the person. The same way you should develop the attachment also, simultaneously you should develop attachment to the eternity or Krishna, to the spiritual world. And our destination should be spiritual world, and whatever we are saying, and the illusion, the whole names and everything should be catched on that. Well knowledge. By knowledge of that, acts of knowledge, that point is.
Thank you. Just like the doctor is there, he is giving a knife, he knows exactly where to cut. So like that. Yeah, so 3 modes are there to help us only. They are not to condition us, although they are conditioning us, but they can help us to free ourselves. Next. Pass it here also. Start from here. First row. Give it. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so you should basically learn to live in this world and also plan for the next world. Just like when you're preparing, you're doing a PhD, simultaneously you should plan for what you will do after. Many times people think that let me first finish, I'm struggling here right now, let me first, then I'll think. Then they become stuck. And that should be the motivation that, okay, if I do this, even though I'm going through the struggle, when you see the future also, you will perform better now. So similarly, you should know how to live in this world and also think about the spiritual world. Yes. Yeah. It's like you're watching a movie and 3 hours you waste and you enjoy the movie because actually you're not doing anything. In the movie, something is happening. So likewise, you waste your time. So you should know, if you do your work, material nature will do exactly what it's supposed to do. This is a secret of success. Many times we think we are struggling. We are struggling because we are not doing what we are supposed to do. Then if you do what you are supposed to do and which is natural to you, automatically the world is, supposing you are working like a prime minister, obviously all the other ministers will become active. Okay, he's doing his job, then I must do my job, otherwise I'll be in trouble. So like that, material nature will do its job perfectly. Okay, next person.
Krishna is very clear statement that he is the supreme for both material and spiritual worlds. Along with that, he is the all the Vedas and Vedantas, he is the
Yes.
He only exposed.
Yeah, very important. That, as I told, 15 chapter, 15, 16, 17, 18. So the very important verses. Yes.
And I was thinking about the we must prepare ourselves for its destination. What is the destination? And we take a very nice example of the so the IIT was the top was, but I didn't go to the
So just like Arjuna was there, he had to shoot a fish on top, but he had to look at its reflection in the water. So like that, we have to perfect even this material world. If you perfect, it becomes very easy to go to the spiritual world. Otherwise, it will be difficult here itself. What to speak about going there? Okay? Yeah. Next one. Pass it on. Done. Just circulate the beads, the puppies. So I thank the participants on the Zoom. We'll end the session here. Nachiket, you can end. So next week we'll do 16 and 17 chapter. 16 chapter is about divine and demoniac natures. 17 chapter, divisions of faith. We're trying to accelerate the course because, as I said, 4th and 18th we have some other engagements. We here only, but slightly different. Nachiket, you can stop the recording and end the session.
Sure, Prabhuji. I'm closing it.